As our nation prepares for Thanksgiving, we just thank God for all the blessings He has bestowed upon us, our men and women in uniform who keep us safe. We thank them and their families for the sacrifices they make for our democracy, for our freedom. This year, we won't be able to be joining each other in the traditional way, but virtually we'll come together to thank God for our blessings. As we do so, though, it will be with great pain. It will be great pain that in our country, in this course of this year, 250,000 Americans have lost their lives to the coronavirus. Daily cases have averaged over 160,000 in this past week. Hospitalizations have set a national record for 3 days in a row last week. And over 11 million, it's 11.7 million and growing, people have been infected. Cases are set to rise. On the economic front, 20 million Americans are on unemployment, with the benefits soon set to expire, and millions have fallen into poverty and are food insecure and face the threat of eviction. So this is what is in our hearts. Sadly, our traditional, some of the things that we do regularly, but especially at Thanksgiving, to minister to those who are food insecure and the rest, will not actually be possible, but nonetheless, we must try. We are in a full-blown economic and health catastrophe, and it's amazing to see the patience the GOP has for other people's suffering. In another week, a few weeks, we'll observe the 8th anniversary of Sandy Hook. 8 years ago, we saw the unspeakable horror of innocent children being gunned down at Sandy Hook. The people cried out for gun violence prevention, but the Republicans just brushed it off. This too shall pass. Several months ago, we all watched the murder of George Floyd. The American people poured into the streets. In fact, people all over the world poured into the streets for days and in some cases weeks. But Republicans ignored that, refused to pass legislation. This too shall pass. Now 250,000 Americans, as I mentioned, are dead. The number's rising. Over 6 months ago, when we passed the HEROES Act, Leader McConnell said, we need a pause. We need a pause. Well, I would hope that for him, the pause can come to an end. Nearly 200,000 people have died during that pause. So we're asking him, come back to the table. A few days ago, Leader Schumer and I sent him a letter, which you've all seen, asking the Republicans to come back to the table to meet the needs of the American people, which they have been willing to ignore. We would like to extend some of the provisions of the CARES Act, which are set to expire at the end of this year. We want to, again, add to that meeting the food needs. Over 17 million children in America are food insecure. And we have a hard time getting to put addressing those food needs into legislation. We must have that. The American people want that. That's part of our value system. Again, let's have help with rental assistance. Okay, have a moratorium, but unless the rent is paid, people are not going to be able to stay in their homes, and their landlords are not going to be able to pay the bank. So this helps everybody. It has become clear in the past 6 months that we needed more PPP to help our small businesses. Let's work that in, as we have tightened our belt any number of times in our HEROES Act, and once again a month ago to include PPP. The list goes on and on. But some of these things about unemployment insurance, food security, stopping evictions, PPP to keep our businesses, small businesses, thriving. And they have refused to crush the virus. They even admitted they had no intention of controlling it, much less crushing it. It is my hope that with the vaccine now, that will give a different perspective across the threshold to say there is a light at the end of the tunnel, so that the president and the administration and the Republicans can say, yes, we should follow science in a shorter period of time than we've been through already. If we test, trace, treat, wear masks, social distance, sanitation, recognizing that the hit that this is taking onto communities of color, if we do what is in the HEROES Act in this regard, we'll be ready for the vaccine to have a big effect right from the start. And in light of the vaccine, as we have in the HEROES Act, and perhaps we should do more now because the vaccine is here, it's imminent, that we should be having the resources to make sure that the vaccine is distributed immediately, equitably, so that everyone has access to it. In that regard, though, for that to happen, the president must implement the Defense Production Act so that those companies, those entities that are used to this new technology that both Pfizer and Moderna have used can undertake making this vaccine more available, because we're going to need quite a bit for ourselves and for the world, because unless everyone is safe, as I said, no one is safe. So let's hope that it's time for McConnell's pause to end. We have been working on the omnibus bill, and I thought that would be a segue into this. Let's hope that it is. Again, it is curious to see how they are trying to impede progress. And another misguided act of irresponsibility, Secretary Mnuchin has said he would end many critical emergency lending initiatives at the end of the year. Now, why would they do that? Drawing a rare rebuke from the Fed. Fed rarely speaks out. As the Fed said in its statement, it would prefer the full suite of emergency facilities established during the coronavirus pandemic to continue to serve their important role as a backstop for our still strained and vulnerable economy. The Fed would prefer the full suite of emergency facilities established during the coronavirus pandemic continue to serve their important role as a backdrop for our still strained and vulnerable economy. It's highly unusual for the Fed to comment in that manner on something said by the Secretary of the Treasury. Again, why? Why? Because they want to impede the ability of the next administration to have everything available to them. The situation could not be more dire. The need for action could not be more urgent. Real meaningful relief is desperately needed. No surprise to anyone, perhaps except Mitch McConnell. The families are losing lives and livelihoods. The hospitals are overwhelmed. The frontline workers are risking their lives and losing their jobs. The parents are unable to put food on the table or keep a roof over their heads. 17 million children in America are food insecure. And we couldn't even get the food issue into the CARES Act. So we need to get it into the legislation now. Schools are unable to keep students and staff safe. That could happen. All we have to do is follow the science. We know how we can open our economy, open our schools safely, but we have to make a decision to follow science. and good governance. Again, this week again, Senator Leader Schumer and I wrote to McConnell demanding that he finally come to the table on a bipartisan, bicameral COVID relief. As we said in the letter that I referenced earlier, the dual public health and economic crisis caused by COVID-19 continue to devastate communities across the country. What is becoming clear to all Americans is that we cannot achieve real economic recovery until we address the expanding public health crisis. The time to act is upon us like never before. The pandemic and the economic recession will not end without our help. Later today, Leader Schumer and I will be visiting President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris. We're discussing a lame duck session, the urgency of crushing the virus and easing the pain of this economic crisis, keeping government open, as I referenced earlier, the omnibus bill. We're pleased that our Moving America Forward legislation that we passed in the summer and Build Back Better of Joe Biden are so compatible for creating good-paying jobs, including through investments in infrastructure, manufacturing, workforce development, clean energy. The list goes on and on. We're very proud. Okay, now, you wonder about this. Did you know that House Democrats got nearly 2 million more votes than Donald Trump? I say that because everybody said, well, what? Everybody turned out, and it was a great victory, a mandate. The most important thing we did 2 years ago was win the House. We won 40 seats, 31 of them in Trump districts, in the most gerrymandered, voter-suppressed political arena you could name. 40 seats, 31 in Trump districts. I said then, it's going to be harder next time because he'll be on the ballot. And it was. And so we will lose a few of those seats, a couple in a Hillary district and a few in his district. But imagine nearly 2 million more votes than Donald Trump. And people say, well, the Democrats didn't turn out. No, we did. We turned out our votes. In fact, more than 3 million more than the Republicans did. But as I said, again, in the most gerrymandered, voter-suppressed political arena with President Trump on the ballot. So I congratulate them for the seats they won. I congratulate him for the turnout that he created. He got a good vote. I don't have Joe Biden up here. What's he up to now? 78 million? 79 million. 79. But I just wanted to show you how we related to these others. So we need everything. We're a family. We're a big tent in our party. We're proud of everyone in it. The turnout was across the board. We do believe that our House races in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Arizona, Georgia contributed to those electoral college successes, and across the country to the almost 79 million votes that Joe Biden had. We're very proud of him and Kamala Harris. We're proud of him as a unifier for our country, and we're proud of the big vote that House Democrats contributed to that success. Because so many people were saying, well, this and that and the other. No. We want more, and we will have more, and we've already started that. But I want you to be sure you knew nearly 2 million more votes than Donald Trump. Any questions? Garrett?
Your Oversight Committee sent a letter asking for the head of the GSA to come and testify. I'm wondering if you could speak to why they decided to do that now, and more broadly, what do you see as the House's role in ensuring a smooth transition?
Well, I don't know that they asked for a testify. They wanted a briefing. They asked for a briefing. Testify is different. That's a hearing. Okay, they asked for a briefing, and that is hopefully before Thanksgiving that will happen. You hope that people would have good faith in the jobs that they have. You want to give them a chance to get that done. It is totally mystifying that the GSA refuses to make the statement necessary for the transition to happen in orderly fashion. They've been sort of Trumpian from the start, from the Trump Hotel and all the rest of that way back when, so no surprise that they are following that lead, which is most unfortunate for the country. But what they're saying is, explain to us what your basis is for going down that place. Yeah. And again, everything was kind of, let's let it see what let's hope for the best. Let's hope that there be enough Republicans to say, this is America, the people's voices count, and that must be respected. So to the extent, it won't be long before we have a certification, the meeting of the Electoral College, December 14th, and then here in the House on January 6th. But again, it was really trying to be unifying. Let's take our time, let's give them a chance, and that's why we don't have a hearing, we're just having a briefing.
And to the second part of that question, I mean, do you see an expanded role for the House in trying to make sure this process goes smoothly, especially as the president continues to refuse to concede?
Yes. Well, I'm not one to show my hand, but nonetheless, we're ready. We're ready. Yes, sir.
Between the plots against Governor Whitmer and the two guys who drove up from Virginia to Philadelphia during the counting, do you or other Democrats have concerns that the longer this goes on in terms of Trump challenging the vote and other Republicans saying he should exhaust his legal options and it's still an open question and so on, that raises the prospect for violence?
Well, we all have to know that the President of the United States, his words weigh a ton. They weigh a ton. And people hear things in a way that could encourage some unfortunate situations, as they have done in the state of Michigan. You would think that there would be, on the part of all Republicans, a rejection. Did you see the array of agenda items the Michiganders had? Public execution. Have you seen it? Yeah, so you know how dangerous it is. Burning down the Capitol and not getting, shall we say, told that that's not appropriate in our country, but instead having, God knows how, what's his name? Atlas. Oh my God. Did you see his statements that encourage that, coming right there from the right hand of the President of the United States, saying you got to have stirred up in the streets and the rest of that. So this is bad behavior, but again, let's try to be unifying. Let's try to be respectful. There is this element in our country. I don't think Donald Trump created it, but I think he fans the flame, and I think that's a dangerous situation. Yes, sir.
Madam Speaker, as you mentioned, businesses are hurting out there, and still there's about $138 million that's allocated in PPP funds that's there, ready, available. Any possibility on releasing some of that money?
Well, that's up to the administration, and that's why we're saying, what is this? And plus, all the other money that Mr. Mnuchin has discretion over, that's for bigger business, but nonetheless, as the Fed has said, so much a part of our economy it's real. That's why I referenced Sandy Hook. Forget about it. That's why I referenced George Floyd. Let's just move on. People are suffering, and if you don't believe in governance, then it's hard. It's easy for you to say, we don't really have to do all of these things. And that's what the problem is. But I'm optimistic that we will have bipartisanship to put something together to go forward, because I do believe that many of our colleagues understand what's happening in their districts and to want to make a difference. There's just one big obstacle in the way. In the Senate, it's Mitch McConnell, but the other obstacle, because he's does what President Trump says, and that's President Trump. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
As far as those negotiations go right now,
Yes, sir.
who are these active negotiations going on with? Is it House Democrats and Leader McConnell? Is the White House involved? When's the last time you spoke with
that's not
Treasury
happening.
Secretary Mnuchin?
Yesterday, there was a meeting of the staff of the four corners. That'd be the House and Senate Democrat and Republican leaders. The anticipation was that it was really about the omnibus. You have, remember, we have to have an omnibus bill. We must keep government open. That's a very important responsibility during the lame duck. We don't want another continuing resolution. I don't think they do either. So we have an expression. Yesterday was for the staffs to deal with what we call the ash and trash. You know, just some of the things that are not up here but need to be resolved so that we can move forward. And that hopefully we would have been able to begin a path to the COVID. That didn't happen, but hopefully it will.
So who do you need to engage with? Then?
Excuse
Is it
me?
the White House? Is it Leader McConnell?
No, these were the four leaders. Four leaders, yes, ma'am.
Secretary Mnuchin said this morning that he is meeting with Leader McCarthy and Leader McConnell later today to talk about a stimulus deal for COVID relief. Do you have any plans to talk to him upcoming?
Well, he said in his comments that they would be reaching out, but we're asking him to come back to this. We've been sitting at the table for 6 months plus a week, waiting for them to come back. The obstacles have been they do not want to honor our heroes, our state and local workers, our healthcare workers, our teachers, our first responders, our police and fire, our transportation, sanitation, food workers who make our existence possible. They're saying they don't want to do that, and in fact, many of those workers are laid off. They have risked their lives to save lives, and now they must lose their jobs. Many, over 1 million of them have. The other part of that is that the fiscal soundness of our state and local governments is important to the fiscal soundness of our country. So it doesn't make any sense in terms of meeting the needs of people, honoring the work of our heroes, and again, the soundness of our economy. So we have to get something done. And again, they have been resistant on many of the things that we consider priorities, but everybody knows people are hungry, people are fearing eviction, people need the CARES Act provisions to be extended that address unemployment insurance and the rest. I won't go into how they comment on all of that, but the main thing that they have, the two main things, honor our heroes so that the states and local governments can meet the needs that we talked about, hospitalizations and all the rest. It's coronavirus-centric as well as revenue loss because of shutdowns. But this is the most mystifying to me and the most unscientific. They will not decide to crush the virus. My hope is the vaccine will say, okay, there's a path, so let's stop the spread of it while we manufacture more and distribute more of it. That's it. Thank you.
You want to combine the Omni and the COVID deal?
Thank you all.
Do you think you'll hear from the Secretary before the end of the day?
Why no condemnation of the violence against Trump supporters last weekend?
What about your dad? Never call him. Classic Ron campaign.
Who was that, Rucker, right?
Rucker and Ashley Barker. Who both have Pulitzer Prizes now, so I guess it worked out okay.
What about my Charlie?
Oh, I'm not,
Garrett?
What?
What about Bill and Ashley?
From the Romney campaign when we were in Poland in 20.
Yeah.
What about your dad?
Every six months or so. I really do.
You can always come back. This is a holy site.